Flames 2 or 3 inches high emerged from the defroster vent as Sam Ace Rothstein sat in his car with takeout food in the parking lot of Tony Roma's restaurant on East Sahara Avenue in Las Vegas. That was the first thing Frank Lefty Rosenthal saw, according to what he told author Nicholas Pileggi. Frank Lefty Rosenthal was who the character of Sam Ace Rothstein in Casino was based on. The flames were reflected on the interior windshield. Rosenthal asked himself, "Why is my car on fire?" As Rosenthal struggled with the door to get out, the car filled with sheets of flame, and a strong jolt might have thrown him against the steering wheel, hurting his ribs. But he couldn't remember any of that. Outside the car, with his clothes on fire, he rolled on the ground to snuff out the flames. 2 men assisted him as the car's gas tank ignited, causing an explosion like an atom bomb. Rosenthal saw the 4,000-pound Cadillac Eldorado jump a few feet, with flames shooting through the roof 2 stories high. "That's when I realized for the first time it hadn't been an accident," he told Nicholas Pileggi. "That's when I knew somebody put a bomb in my car." Lefty Rosenthal survived the car bomb attack, but he left Las Vegas soon afterward. Today, authorities still do not know who planted the bomb that blew up Rosenthal's car on October 4th, 1982. Investigators speculated his life was saved because the 1981 model of that car had a steel stabilizing plate beneath the driver's seat, which deflected the blast. Along with the uncertainty over who killed Benjamin Bugsy Siegel in 1947 and the 1975 disappearance of labor leader Jimmy Hoffa, the Rosenthal car bombing remains one of the top unsolved organized crime mysteries in the country. The Rosenthal incident occurs in the movie Casino, based on Nicholas Pileggi's 1995 nonfiction book Casino, Love and Honor in Las Vegas. Rosenthal's description of what happened that October night is detailed in the book and depicted in the movie, which Pileggi co-wrote with director Martin Scorsese. For the movie, the characters were given fictional names to avoid legal difficulties, though their real names are used in the book. Robert De Niro stars in the movie as Sam Ace Rothstein, the character based on Rosenthal. Rosenthal, a Chicago mob associate, ran the now demolished Stardust Hotel Casino called Tangiers in the Casino movie on the Las Vegas Strip for Midwestern crime families that received untaxed gambling revenue skimmed from there, the Stardust, and other resorts. The Stardust and other Argent Corporation properties, the Fremont, Hacienda, and Marina, were owned by San Diego businessman Alan Glick, but mob bosses who helped Glick secure Teamsters union loans installed Rosenthal to run things. That era, punctuated by the car bombing, resulted in several Midwestern mobsters being imprisoned a few years later in casino skimming trials. Several theories have surfaced regarding who tried to kill Rosenthal. The most prominent is that it was the work of mobster Anthony Tough Tony Spilotro, who, like Frank Rosenthal, was an underworld transplant from Chicago. Anthony Spilotro is represented by Nicky Santoro's character, played by Joe Pesci in Casino. Spilotro also was having an affair with Lefty's wife, Jerry, portrayed by Sharon Stone as Ginger in the movie. Tony Spilotro, who worked side by side with Rosenthal for years as associates of the Chicago outfit, has long been suspected of orchestrating the car bombing, but evidence linking him to it is lacking. Another theory pins the crime on the outlaw bikers Jerry Rosenthal, or Ginger in the movie, knew in Southern California during a downward spiral that resulted in her apparent drug overdose death at the age of 46, a month after the car bombing. Spilotro and his brother Michael were beaten to death in 1986 and buried in an Indiana cornfield. Another suspect in the car bombing is former Milwaukee crime boss Frank Mad Bomber Balistrieri. A History Channel publication released in 2020 titled The American Mafia states that most evidence points to Balistrieri. According to the publication, Balistrieri blamed Rosenthal for the Chicago outfit's demand that he surrender 25% of the take from his skimming operation. Some who were around in those days view it differently, believing Kansas City mobsters were responsible for the bombing. Frank Cullotta, the inspiration behind Frank Marino, played by Frank Vincent in Casino, was a Chicagoan who reconnected with childhood pal Tony Spilotro in Las Vegas in the 1970s, becoming his mob lieutenant in town. Cullotta said in a recent telephone interview that the Kansas City Mafia suspected Rosenthal of being a government informant and therefore wanted to take him down. Las Vegas Review-Journal reporter Jane Ann Morrison later confirmed through her law enforcement sources what some mobsters sensed, that Rosenthal had been a top echelon federal informant. Morrison even discovered that Jerry Rosenthal also talked to the FBI. This part is not portrayed in the movie, as we don't see Sam Ace Rothstein or his wife Ginger talk to the FBI. However, according to this journal reporter, they were federal informants. Frank Rosenthal's involvement as an informant went back a long time, according to what Nicholas Pileggi said over the telephone recently from his Manhattan apartment. The screenwriter said Frank Rosenthal likely had been a top echelon informant as far back as his Chicago years, when he was a prominent odds maker, meaning even before Rosenthal got to Las Vegas, he was involved with the FBI. And when the mob finally learns that about someone, arrangements are made to silence that person. Once you're a top echelon informant, you are a target, Pileggi said, adding that mobsters from somewhere in the Midwest, Cleveland, Chicago, Milwaukee, Kansas City, were probably responsible for trying to kill Rosenthal with the car bomb. Unlike others from that period, Rosenthal never was held criminally responsible for the widespread skimming that took place. He moved away from Las Vegas not long after the bombing, first to California, then to Florida, where he offered sports betting advice on his own website before dying in 2008 of an apparent heart attack at age 79. Frank Cullotta said the Kansas City crime family led by Nick Savella adhered to Omerta, the mafia code of silence. In their world, people who talked had to be dealt with. These guys were tough, Cullotta said of the Kansas City family. Cullotta was somewhat familiar with Kansas City, having participated in a couple of jewelry store heists in town with Spilotro and Chicago mobster Vincent the Saint in Cerro, scoring about $70,000 in stolen goods. Cullotta and a burglary crew called the Hole in the Wall Gang were captured in 1981, breaking into what was then Bertha's Gifts and Home Furnishings on East Sahara, not far from where Rosenthal's car would be firebombed the next year. The Tony Roma's restaurant later closed, where Rosenthal's car was bombed, but became a Hustler Hollywood store, selling adult apparel and novelties after. Some believe Frank Mad Bomber Balistrieri, boss of the Milwaukee mob, was behind the bombing of Rosenthal's car. Balistrieri was well known for using explosives to solve his problems. Believing he was targeted for death himself, Frank Cullotta cooperated with the government and entered the Federal Witness Protection Program. He spoke at length with Nicholas Pileggi for the book, and even briefly appeared in the movie as a mafia hitman, a role he had taken on in real life. Cullotta now hosts a YouTube program titled Coffee with Cullotta. Another who thinks the Kansas City mob probably engineered the car bombing of Frank Rosenthal is Gary Jenkins, a former Kansas City Police Department intelligence detective now running Gangland Wire, a website about the mafia. Jenkins, who was named in Pileggi's book as a local cop who investigated the Savella crime family back then, said Rosenthal not only was suspected of being an informant, but he was drawing attention to himself in Las Vegas. Rosenthal waged a public battle with state gaming regulators, including future U.S. Senator Harry Reid, and he hosted a television show broadcast from the Stardust, featuring celebrity guests such as Frank Sinatra. This public notoriety was jeopardizing the scam that enriched mobsters in the Midwest. Jenkins' 2016 book, Leaving Vegas, includes wiretap transcripts of Kansas City mobsters expressing disappointment with Rosenthal's high-profile antics. These disappointments are also seen in the Casino movie by the Kansas City mobsters as they see Rosenthal on TV and they ask, "What the hell is Ace doing?" He was creating a stir, Jenkins said in a recent telephone interview. Jenkins noted that Kansas City during its mob wars in the 1970s was known as a town where car bombings took place. Of the Rosenthal bombing, Jenkins said, "It fits the mold of what Kansas City was doing at that time." Jenkins is among those who doubt there will ever be an answer to who tried to kill Rosenthal. Most people who might have known probably are dead, he said. Pileggi sees it the same way. There might be some aging former federal agent who knows something, Pileggi said, but so far, Nothing definite has emerged, and each passing day closes the door a little more. The clock is running out, Pileggi said.